Somebody told us this morning that we made a major flaw. We asked everybody to introduce ourselves, but Thomas and I never introduced ourselves. And I think this is the time to do it. So Thomas, please, 2 more minutes.
Hi, I'm Thomas. No, I'm a freelancing dance dramaturg based between Berlin and Reykjavik, and working internationally with choreographers. And through, I don't know, 3 years ago, we met for the first time and started now collaborating on facilitating this symposium. I did that, that's my second time actually doing that, and I'm teaching also, giving workshops on dance dramaturgy. So far to that, maybe. I'm a bit, like, my head is all over right now, so sorry.
It's unfair to put you in that position now.
I give it to
okay,
you know.
Thank you. My name is Jeppe Nissen, and I work here at Bora as a producer and as a dramaturg. Maybe not so much as a dramaturg as I would like, because that's also like the first thing you cut in your list of work, right? It's like being a dramaturg, even though I really like when I get to do it. And also what I'm working a lot with is about the development. How can we, for example, use the things that we learn from the residency center? How can we use that in our everyday work here in the venue with having an audience coming in and so on? So in that sense, it's also this is kind of how to say it, a post or a further education of me that we are doing this symposium. So in that sense, I feel real fortunate doing this. So thank you for coming, helping me getting educated. No, then I think we'll continue into this program, and we are going to do it because Andreas and I have been working together for some time, and that's one of the places where we actually have had a long-term work. I had a long-term work here as a dramaturg in the house. So that's kind of the start on this, and I think we should try to do a little game here, because also because I know Andreas is a kind of player, so that's true. And so the game is that we ask each other a question, and we can ask anything. Well, of course, there's a context here, but it's not necessarily limited to this. Mm-hmm. And then we have Sunna as a timekeeper. She's counting 25 minutes. We can see if we're still interesting. If not, then we'll open up for questions. In 25 minutes time, you can ask us anything. So it's a matter of trust. Okay, so Andreas, I'll start. Who are you?
My name is Andreas, and I am a strange person that lives in a strange country. I am an artist. I work predominantly with the borders of physical theatre, immersive theatre, and live art. Yes, and I'm the artistic director of Him, Her, and It Productions, and an in-house artist here in this amazing building and organisation. That's who I am for now. And Jeppe, what colour underwear do you have on?
It's black.
Okay.
So Andreas, what is it that you're working on right now? Because that's what we are working together on at the moment. So can you introduce that work?
So currently I'm working on 2 new performances. One is called Champions and one is called Mass Effect. These 2 performances are investigations around themes of endurance and resilience from 2 different perspectives. One of the works is predominantly installation, predominantly video with elements of live performance, and taking that onto a stage, so making a work that can fit between the borders of a museum gallery but also sit and play on a stage. While the second work is a work on 7 professional dancers, and 14 volunteers, looking at the physical aspects of endurance and stamina. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. Yes. So, I'll ask you, first of all, just very basic, how has the experience been for you working with me over the course of 4, 5, 6 years?
Yeah. It's 4, 5, 6 years already.
Yes,
well, I think it's kind of a, if we should talk about it, it's a slowly homing in a way, because that's also, I think, some of what happened in our process, and maybe that's also a thing that it takes time. It cannot just kind of go, boom, now go dramaturg for you. How to say it? It is kind of a thing that grows between us, and I think it's been. Also, because you are not so much working in only movement-based things, it's been kind of an easy attack for me, or an easy test ground, playground for me, because it's also more from my background, as I'm trained also mainly in theatre and physical theatre. So in that sense, it's been a good kind of safe platform for me to train my tools as a dramaturg. Oh yeah, and then I have to ask you something. Yeah, I was because now this is a double work that you're working with, and in the beginning when we talked about it, you were quite certain that you wanted my or needed my, or how to say it, presence mainly in one of the processes.
Yes.
And can you elaborate a bit about what your reflections on that is?
Yes. Okay. So I predominantly wanted you to support as dramaturg on the first piece, which is called Champions, which is the piece which is a video installation, which is more live art really than I would say dance. The reason being is because on that particular process, I decided that I would collect sessions, all my therapy sessions, and from a whole year, and interview my family members around very personal subject matters, around topics of sexuality, topics of being, topics of where my biggest vulnerabilities lay. And so I knew that I wanted to construct and have an outside eye to help with all of this material, all of this personal material, and kind of have an objective, kind of distant view on the material. So I would be able to engage as the kind of subjective, the subject, and try to be objective, but then also have you there as my kind of support of helping with that. So that's why I chose on that one. Whereas the second one is much more an investigation on like physical stamina, physical endurance, physical resilience, that I felt with that work, I actually wanted to purely focus much more on a kind of choreographic level with a very simple thematic or artistic concept. And I just felt that I needed more support in one than the other, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah. I would like to ask you, how has it been for you? Because in all my work, I mean, I'm a queer man and I make queer work. And how has it been working in themes of queer subjects being heterosexual, and what's your standpoint, and how does this work as a dramaturg with me?
Yeah, that's actually, it is a good question, because of course sometimes it's also a bit embarrassing when sitting alone sneak peeking on your conversations with your therapist, or but also I don't think for me it's very much a working room that I go into, so in that sense, but of course we've been kind of developing through the years, so I know you quite well, but at some point also in this process I had to say to you, are you all right with this? Are you going on, or should I take care of you instead of the process? I guess what I think was my question, because I needed to know that, but it wasn't so much linked to the sexuality, but more to the
well-being.
Yeah, well-being actually, and but. I think, of course, it's always enlightening in a way, because it's kind of a field that I don't know so much about. So, and also reflecting a lot on my own practice and how I see other persons. But I think in a way, it's not. It's kind of just a part of the professional room that we constitute.
Am I allowed to respond as well, or do I always only ask questions?
No.
I'm allowed to respond?
Yeah, but
in our games, I'm breaking the rules already.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a kind of really important actually, because the fact that you are a cisgendered white heterosexual man is actually amazing. That I bring you into you're in my safe space, and actually we bounce off ideas, or we bounce off work together, which I don't know. It's like you come from another standpoint, and it's also a safe standpoint. So I feel really safe, and I feel like I can explore these thematics in a very, what am I trying to say? Not only within a queer bubble. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm reaching. I try to reach out beyond that, and I can do that in a safe space with you.
So that's how I feel. Actually how I can be kind of an even further outside eye, because otherwise you would prefer to pull in other queer artists to look at your work, or how to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, yes.
Okay. But I actually have to say something here, also breaking the rules. It was just because at some point during your therapy, you said this, that you tend to not to trust white heterosexual males that much. And I felt a little deceived there. But that was just about what my comment on that. But I understood what you meant, though.
Yes.
So I would just ask you, where in your process does the audience come in to your thoughts, and how are they present throughout the process of your work?
Okay. They're present, and I think this is very different depending on the type of work that I'm making. So in an immersive work, they're there from the beginning.
Okay.
In stage work, they're there later.
If we take champions
as an example,
with,
so that for me, audience comes in at a later process, not right at the beginning. First is born the idea, the concept, then comes the spark, the improvising, the investigation, the journey, and the throwing up, the vomiting, and then comes the sorting out of what you had for lunch and breakfast and dinner. And you have to decide, well, actually, what is it that I want to give the audience here? Is it the regurgitation of cornflakes, or is it actually the toast that I had yesterday? And then you make the decision, and then audience comes into play, and craft comes into play, and context comes into play. And that's, for me, where audience get in. So not too early. It's later in the process.
Okay.
And I feel like together, that's for sure something that bounces off between us. But I would say it doesn't bounce off right at the beginning. At the beginning, I feel very much that you're supporting, you're holding certain frames, you're giving me space to vomit, you're giving me space to just let everything out, and then you're just saying like, oh, here's a little frame, and then I'm like, okay, I can grasp that, and then the frames, not set from you, set from myself, bouncing off you, become tighter and tighter, and then gradually at one point, it's like, okay, now let's talk about what's being read. How is this reading? What is it offering? Yeah. On that note, I would like to ask you a question. As an artist, I'm really interested in pushing my personal borders and my boundaries. I'm purposely trying to make myself vulnerable all the time, because I feel I get excited there, because I feel I have artistic development but also self-development. I would like to, what is it, where do you find that you push your borders in your role as a dramaturg? Does that happen? And if so, how so?
I think this also links to something we talked about in the room before, just before here, that I think for me it's always the task to be in the disagreeing. And when I see something that is that I feel is a place where I, as a dramaturg or as an audience, can kind of get off the process, how to react to that, and how to tell you in a way that cares about what you have put into this of thoughts, that this is something that we should look upon, and that we are disagreeing on maybe where we go. So for me, that's this, how to do that in a way that can make us go forward together instead of opposing each other. I think that's always where I tend to do, like pushing my borders, or trying to be better and sharper and faster in doing this, because sometimes also it's about doing it when it just comes up, and sometimes, at least Earlier, I think very much I had this like, okay, let's see, let's wait. Sometimes it's also like, let's wait and see if he finds out himself it's a bad idea. But yeah. So yeah, I think that's where I push my borders often. Actually, is trying to be in the disagreement with you. Yeah.
I never feel that we're in disagreement.
No, but I think that's also linked to I think for us it's very the roles are very clear in a way.
Yeah.
That is your work.
Yes.
And that I'm testing it and probing it and playing with it in a way. But it's your work, and in the end of the day, it's your decision.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So in that sense, I would never say to you, you should consider the audience here, or how to say it, you should fuck that because or whatever. No. So in that sense, it's really, I think that roles.
Yes.
I think it has been very clear from the beginning that that's how we work.
Definitely. And it's very organic.
Yeah, in a way.
It's like I find it all very organic, to be honest.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. So, just see if I have some more. Yeah, okay. So this is actually one also linking to some of the discussion we had earlier. So the way I see your process, you are already thinking quite analytical about how you go into the practice and how you construct your work.
Yep.
And why don't you just become your own dramaturg?
Well, on some levels, I am, and on some levels, I'm not, because, I mean, you begin alone on a process. I mean, that's like saying, why don't you just masturbate? I mean, everybody wants to have sex once in a while. Well, not everybody, but many people. I mean, it's about interaction. It's about connection. It's about sharing ideas. And this isn't like being in a process. A creative process for me is ultimately about sharing with people, communicating with people, engaging in a moment together, reflecting together. So if I'm ever going to arrive at that point, for me it's really important in a process to not be only reflecting by myself. I need reflection and provocation and questioning, symbiosis, and the opposite of symbiosis with other people, because it helps develop the work, which brings me beyond the dramaturg and brings me just in general to teams. Like what I've realized in the past 4 years is how the importance of an overall team. So it's like Champions, as an example. It's quite a big production. It's got a big set, but ultimately I'm on this space doing nothing. And we're a huge team to make this work. And that team is really, what's the word? Carefully, it's a safe space and it's carefully constructed. Because I feel like that's really important. Teams are important. The energies and symbiosis between people is really important. Yes. That's why I'm not my own dramaturg. Do you feel, how is it for you to, specifically in relation to Champions, how is it for you when I arrived and I said to you, I'm going to be working with recordings of therapy and interviews of my family that are quite personal, and I handed it over to you because I know yes. How was the relationship between the private and the personal as a dramaturg for you in this process?
I think for me, it was really a great task. I saw it as a great task because it is kind of balancing, and I like this balancing and like this struggle. At some point, you also asked me what sparks my interest as a dramaturg, and I think this is some of it, like keeping this. Of course, it's also embarrassing sitting to listen to all this stuff, but at some points, it's also a very trusted work in a way, and it's also a struggle to get this balance between the private and the personal. And as you are working in live art, you can have somewhat more private on stage than others in other settings could, I think. But still, it needs to have needs not to go into you, but go out to the audience, and we talked a lot about that. So that's. But I think this challenge actually might be the good word for it. I was just thinking about this earlier, actually, when you talk about the team.
Yes.
How is it, because you have kind of you are the employer of the team in a way, but
that's a whole other discussion.
But you aren't the employer of me, because I'm kind of, it's on another level.
Yes, absolutely.
And how is that, you should construct my process, but at the same time, you are not my employer. I'm not hired by you.
No, but I'm an in-house artist in this venue, so it's part of the nature of the collab. For me, at least, it's part of the nature of being an in-house artist here. Yeah. That we also, this is really important, that it's not an enforced relationship. No. Because also the people that are employed, they're not enforced relationships. These are people that I invited into, that I would drink with and eat with and be with, basically, and this is fundamentally important. So it's not like, because you're in this house, I should have a dramaturg. No, it's that we found, and I found, in the connection with you, there was something really strong here, something that I felt this can work. So I seek that, and if I wasn't an in-house artist at Bora Bora, I'd still seek to employ you. Okay. You see what I mean? So it's it just happens to be the nature of the relationship.
But maybe it was also more a question of the leadership in this role as having a dramaturg employed in a way, being also the choreographer, having feedback from, or how to say this.
Well, I feel like, to be honest, anyway, I always have more than one dramaturg. As an example, we work together. I have you. I have generally about 3 people that every process I'm using as dramaturgs, whether we use the term dramaturg or not, is all just language, but they are. So Dagmara, who's also co-directing Champions, we've known each other for years and worked together for years, and every single process, it doesn't matter what it is, even if we fart, we're talking about what the meaning of this fart was. It's like literally, it's the process, it's the nature of our relationship as well. So that's always there. And then in this process, I'm also using my psychologist as a dramaturg. So, and that's a whole other ballgame that I've set out for the whole year to think, okay, how does my psychologist become actually my dramaturg in this work? And that's been really amazing and mind-blowing and very incredible. And I've been drawing that back to you. So actually, I feel like I've got 3 or 4 dramaturgs in the work at any given time. And what's wonderful about that is that everybody brings their essence. So everybody is different and has a different cultural background, has a different sexual background, has a different placing in life. Some people some are artists, some are not. Some are poor, some are wealthy. Everybody brings their stuff to the table, and that helps me inform myself and the decisions I'm making more and more, because I'm listening. I try to listen to myself and to the people around And I must say, this is also, it makes me think of safe spaces, because I might sound like, it sounds all like this and loving it, but I also have lots of walls, and I put them up as well. And I don't just let anybody into this space. I'm actually pretty selective, because if I don't feel safe, you cannot be present in this process, because I'm not safe and I won't develop myself. Safety for me becomes a really high priority. Yeah.
I might add, if you don't feel safe, you tend to go in the wrong direction, or you lose yourself, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we talked about that.
Yes, absolutely. Which brings me to a question for you. It's how do you have the ability to remain as objective as possible when working, let's put it in relation to me, when maybe I'm going in directions that are not your aesthetic and not to your taste and not your pleasing? How do you remain to look and say, this is what's going to support the work, and this is what's going to support the development of Andreas's artistic process?
Yeah,
how do you do that?
Yeah, it's actually a good question. But I think for me, as what's called a youngster, I read this book called June by Frank Herbert, and it's kind of a sci-fi book. It's a long story, but it's a sci-fi book, and there's been kind of, it's post a war between humans and machines, and instead of trying to do what make machines more human. They tried to, because that didn't work. Obviously, it became a huge war. They tried to make humans more capable of what different kinds of machines could do. It's a little long. And there they have this. One of the things they did is to have this kind of, they call it a mentat. That's kind of an analytical human tool. Yeah. And I think that when I read that, I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to be. I don't know. But I think that's kind of the thing that it keeps to what is important here. Like keeping trying to keep my, emotions out and keep the facts in. Yeah. And also to keep in mind what is it actually that you are trying to achieve and not me. Because I know something about how you are as an artist. And of course I can see this is why you are doing this is the logic for you. Yeah. And then if I kind of feel that there is kind of a clash between your inner logic and the project, then I ask you or test it. And then, of course, sometimes you say, no, I really want it like this. And then I say, okay, then fine. But I just needed to know that you are aware that this is how I perceive what you're doing. Because then if you are aware of it and you're okay with that, then I think I've done what I can do. How to say? So that's no, because then also if you are, maybe you would say you're okay at some point, but not like going home. It will also spark a reflection if it's really like that, or if something should be done otherwise. And I think that's enough for the conversation at that point, saying I think maybe I don't know how much time do we have? Still have a few minutes. Yeah, I think it's.
Should we sit and be together?
Yeah, just for a few minutes.
How very live art it was.
Hello? Yeah?
Yeah?
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, so thank you very much. Truth or Dare is up.
I feel like we should have had more dares.
Yeah.
Well, which actually, we'll open it up to the audience, but can I ask a dare question then, maybe? Yes. Just to open the audience participation up. So you talked a little bit about you're the in-house artist, choreographer, and you are the theater's dramaturg, curator, producer, Jeppe. And you talked about it not being an imposed relationship.
Yes.
So I guess this is my dare question. Can you truthfully say that there have never been any conflict of interests in terms of you also being the theater's person?
I think.
Do you understand the question?
I mean, I do from.
You don't have to be specific,
No,
but I guess I'm just interested.
I think it's different positionings that we sit in. Yeah. And I can honestly say from mine, no, not at all. Because, to be quite honest, I don't have to have Jeppe as my dramaturg. I want to have Jeppe as my dramaturg. And actually, half the time, I have to push a little bit to get Jeppe more. I'm like, come on, I want Jeppe. Let me have Jeppe.
No, and I think it's the same. It is kind of a dare question, because of course it's really hard, but I never felt that there was a conflict of interests. And what we are doing is also having like this system in-house where we have a producer that could be me, but in this case it's not. And if there's any productional questions, then I say to Andreas, you have to talk to Kasper about it, because this is not the room for it. Because I've found out through the years that we need to kind of keep all these things out. And away from the dramaturgical room, because it will clutter it anyway, if we don't keep the productional matters out of that room.
Yes, and they actually never come into that room.
No.
Like, it would feel so unorganic if it was there.
Okay. But hypothetically, there could be a conflict of interest.
Yeah, I mean, depending if the ingredients weren't right, it depends on the characters and the beings of people. You know what I mean? If you've got... who are you? But I mean, I find that as a question of who are you, and what do you bring with you? And for me, I'm like, I'm rooted in.
Yeah. hypothetically there could be a conflict of interest, but then I think I should back out. That would be my response to it in a way, or I should alarm my boss and say, I can see a conflict of interest here. You should have a talk with Andreas about it, or whatever. That would be, yeah.
I mean, it is also an interesting question in relation to what you have stressed and what has been stressed before, the safe space. And what does that mean then, both in that relation of the question, but also in general, just as a comment, what do we actually mean with safe space when dramaturgy at the same time, what I would like to say also, is also there to provoke or to actually create maybe unsafe spaces in order to move forward. Just to bring that also in as another notion in a way.
I want to respond to that. Yeah. Yes, but then you have to define what a safe space is. So, of course, I mean, my whole practice is about being in unsafe spaces. Therefore, I need to have people that I feel safe with to be in an unsafe space. Do you see what I mean? So if I felt an ounce of toxic masculinity coming from Jeppe, this would not be this relationship would not work. That would not be a safe space for me to be in a rehearsal with my arse out, flapping my cheeks around, talking a political blah 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 about whatever. I would not feel safe. So it can be quite practical as well, meaning like your gender, your sexuality, your background, your cultural heritage. These are the factors that create, for me, I'm talking subjectively, create my safe spaces in order to be unsafe. I don't know what creates a safe space for you. And what is a safe space for you?
What is a safe space for me? I never thought about that. No, but that is, of course, that also this talk we had about the when we disagree on something and keep being in the disagreement or to talk about. But what I feel is that in your process you're always kind of going onwards. There's not very many places where we have this discussion on. There's always a place. I have to say this.
Go for it.
There's always a point in the production where you say, "Jeppe, is this complete crap? I need to know." And that's really an interesting point.
It's coming very soon.
But that's really an unsafe space in a way. It's also an unsafe space for me because at some point I really hold the responsibility of all the work that you have done for a long time in my hands and say, okay, how can I then assure you? And it's not that it's a problem, but I need to step back and tell you in a good-natured manner why it's not. So again, I need to be very analytical in why it's not complete crap what you're working on. But I think that's actually an unsafe space for me. Not that it's bad, or it's really also a very responsible space. But
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I should think about that next time I ask you this.
No, it's okay.
No, we'll ask you
but it is soon. Like it's always coming like, shoom. Okay.
Yes, because that's funny because it's the lizard brain. It's like all the all the different parts of our brain that are being accessed in this creative process, right? And at one point it goes black and white.
Yeah.
Is this shit or is this good? I just need to know now,
Yeah.
And even though then those binaries and borders leave, and then it becomes more fluid again. It's like, it's about this. But for me, it always comes back at one point. I'm like, the critical mind sets in.
Yeah.
And yes, I look for confirmation.
Thanks. So, anyone have comments or questions?
Yes,
and remember the rule was, Jeppe, you said you can ask us anything.
Yeah.
So
there was already one
you can
question.
take them up on that.
Yeah. It was the first one.
Are you wearing underwear?
Yes, I am. But I don't know what are they spotty? Yes, spotty red underwear.
Yeah.
It's likely
I
sometimes
think Daniel
not.
has the mic.
Yeah, I just wanted a definition of what an in-house artist is, and how the selection works, and for what amount of time one is in-house, and what it brings. Thanks.
I don't think that I should answer that.
I'm also uncertain if I should answer that, but I think because actually it is
Jesper
kind of
should answer
Jesper's definition. but I can try. Then we can discuss it in the office tomorrow.
I can say
house is actually right in the process being very thorough. It's right in the process of being very thoroughly framed, because we are writing a contract. So it will be for a year at a time, and it's quite a simple, be a member of the house in the way that you just heard described. I mean, you form teams, you don't. You use the space, and it has to be put into programming. So nothing will be done without an accord between the in-house artists and the house. So and we have to. There are so that's the privileges. There are also duties in order to go forward with introducing people to the house or introducing people to dance, coming with ideas of how to make audience, and we never call it development, but we call it audience relation work. So it's a lot of things, but the contract is not finished yet. We hope to have it finished, Andreas, before Christmas. So
haven't I finished? I thought I signed it already.
No. It's just the suggestion.
It's signed, sealed, delivered.
It's a suggestion of our
something
contract
already.
that we have discussed a couple of times.
Can I just say what I think, being an in-house artist, what it is for me? Because Bora Bora are co-producing many artists and are doing many projects with many different artists. I see other in-house artists in the room. These are people that are based here. We're a small community. And it's taking the interest. I think it's a relationship and a partnership. And for me, it's the way I see it, it's the investment of the house, acknowledging that there is an artist that's working outwards into the community, and we're investing not in their productions, but in their long-term artistic development. And that for me is that's the biggest support, more than production, because production, you get the money, you find a house, But the artistic development, I mean, very often I'm doing long-term projects, 6-year projects, 3-year projects. And for me, it's like the bigger picture and having the support for the bigger picture, and that bigger development is what I would call the in-house artist support. But that's, again, very subjective. That's how I view it. So I see it as a really nice relationship.
So all local artists?
Not all. Selected. And again, I hope please just shout out at me if I'm saying something out of line. I think it's also very organic. I think it's all very organic.
But it is very organic. Yeah.
I also think it's all very... Can I just tell a little story? When I first arrived from Iceland to Denmark, this is in 2009, I began a project with another artist who is my dearest friend and my sister and soulmate, Noelia, her name is. And at the time, the crew here, they were at another theatre called Nissen. And we went there, we had a meeting, it's the first time we met. Yes, and I remember already in that first meeting, it was all very organic. Jeppe and Jeppe handed over the keys and said, here you go, just come in, went to rehearse. And that was the beginning of the relationship. Do you know what I mean? And for me, this non-bureaucratical, organic, relationship-based thing is what's grown and developed, and that's been beautiful. And I am really...
And I'll second that.
Yes, I'm lucky for that. So that's the thing, that's the strength. Flourish that. Sorry, that's where I think it's really great.
Punkt.
Okay, thank you. Can we? Are there any other questions in the? Yeah.
I can take this one, but there is one up there as well.
Hi, thank you. Hey. It seems like it's very harmonious and it's a great match. Yeah. And I have a question beyond the personal connection, which is obviously you're the right people for each other, as you can say. Are there practices that, Jeppe, for example, that you could say, oh, this is a practice that is applicable beyond my relationship, beyond conversation, beyond being there and answering questions and talking, which is kind of practice we do all the time, specific things that are tools, skills, that you'd say, this is applicable. This is a professional tool I've developed, or maybe you can recognize these tools, beyond just, I'm just the right person at the right moment, the right time in the right place. Because we're talking about dramaturgy, and we're talking about a dramaturg, right? And these are two different things, because you could be just anyone, in a way.
So you want to look in my toolbox?
No, I'm wondering.
But actually, I think the things that I said about probing, this thing about trying to find out if this is a path that Andreas really wants to take, is one of my tools. I think I used quite often, actually, this going for what is this, and are you really sure you want to go in that direction, because I see it this way, and if you or whatever. So this probing, finding out should we go into that dialogue or not. That's actually one of I think
hasn't it altered, because we've been working with each other for so long. I mean, so it's altered. Like the first time we worked together is very different than now. Meaning, I remember the first time we were working together and you would probe and ask questions, and then it was more like, I can remember being more consumed at a moment in my mind of like, I wonder, I mean, he's really supporting me and it's really helping. I wonder what he likes. What's his view? I don't wonder about that anymore, because we've gone beyond that. So that's why, sorry, I always bring it back to, like, I know it's a profession, it's this, but essentially it's people. Sorry. Because it's like the relationship is long and it develops, and there could be a time where it's like, we've outgrown each other.
Maybe.
Because we've been, this is too stagnant.
But there's also processes where you are in that I'm not. So it's not like I'm in all your processes.
No, not in all.
So in that sense, it's also, and sometimes it's more like just coming in, seeing something, saying, are you going that direction? Yes, I'm not, or whatever. And then it's like, shoot from the hip. I tend to call it.
I think there was a question up here. Did you have your hand up? No, you didn't. Someone else?
I just have maybe one more comment in relation also to that, and maybe not necessarily as I don't know the tools, I'm not in the process, but one aspect that I find interesting, coming back one more time to safe space, is that this decision, on the one hand, of course, like in terms of sexuality and queerness, to have that kind of safe space, but still opening up to a heterosexual white man, which I think is an important, and it would be interesting maybe to hear a little bit more about that also in terms of, because how can we reach the non-queer audience?
That's literally my mission.
Exactly, and I think there is something also interesting in terms of practice between the two of you on that.
All right, should I start? I have an anecdote. So
go for it, please.
It's a long time ago. We went to this. I can't actually remember which one it was. It was Solo of Years that we
redoing gender.
Yes, we performed it in Silkeborg, and at that time I was also your touring technician of that project. And it was like there was nobody there.
No,
there was like, and actually we talked about counseling, but there was this guy from the municipality and his wife, and they were kind of like part of the bourgeoisie and so on, and then we decided to go for like them and two others or something like that.
Like and you 4
did,
people.
And this wife of the politician, she was like, but that was us. That was our job in the 70s, fighting for our rights as women. She saw in Andreas, I don't know if you have thought about that when it was on stage, or you were more into the queer thing, but it was completely the same thing that she saw that from her point of view. And that was really enlightening for me about how maybe we don't see the connections, or how can this be,
I mean, I didn't think about it in the work, but it's a lifelong thought. Because we have the same oppressor. So
that's me.
Quite frankly, but I'm just gonna be honest. So there's a reason queer guys and women get along so well. But
Wait, I want to say something.
Yes. Yeah, go on, go for it. Trigger away.
No, I find, because I'm, I was tickled, and now I'm sort of like, oh, I have this microphone, I have to say something. No, actually, there are two things that I want to say. Maybe first, the thing that I maybe also wanted to say before is that I think it's quite interesting for me to see you here having this conversation, being quite open and honest, and also maybe a bit challenging each other, which I found nice. And then I was remembering, you know, the action that we did with Merel, how we sort of sometimes not talk about things. And I think in long-term relationships, any relationships, we don't talk about things anymore, so we take it for granted. So that's why I think it's nice that you took this opportunity as a catalyst for doing that. So I was wondering, maybe first one question is, will you maybe implement those kind of moments of action, of, you know, leveling out, or actually, are you experiencing like this, or, you know, the things that you were surprising now each other, will you sort of implement it in your working modus? And the second comment is that I'm pretty careful in sort of identifying groups as people are being on the same side, because there's many right-wing people in the women, lesbian, gay, queer community. Well,
absolutely.
Then, so I'm a bit
yes.
Again, because it's again a polarization. From we're from a queer community and we bring it to a non-queer community. Well, you know, there is as much common things going on. Of course, Absolutely. I'm not so very articulated because I'm
I understand
tickled.
what you mean, and I mean this goes into identity politics, which is a huge, massive conversation, which we are not going to go into because there's not enough time. But I can respond basically on when I'm using the language right here and right now. I'm referring specifically, when I use queer, I use it as an umbrella term for people that generally, it doesn't matter if you're LGBTQ, also heterosexual. Queer is to be challenging the heteronormative system that's been around for so long, that has oppressed. That's my interpretation of the word queer, which I've got on my body. That's how I carry it. So for today, that's what the reference would be.
Yeah, I think for me it's because for me it is interesting, but I think the thing is it's well, we're just two human beings here. You are human beings. It's not between humans. It should never be between humans, because we have something we can understand in everyone. We just need to find it and to try to find their logic. But I think so. It's more against the system actually, or the things that we do without thinking about them. That's the oppressor. That's the thing that is oppressing every one of us. Even me as an oppressor or whatever, that's just the system doing it to me, you could say. So for me, I don't believe so much in the struggle. I believe in humans and in humanity. Yeah. But this about putting it into our practice, I don't know, it's maybe. It occurred to me when we just discussed this that we never actually talk about how we work together. We just do it.
We just do it.
Yeah.
And that's great.
And it is.
I don't want to talk about how we do it.
No.
Can we just do it?
Yeah.
That's really nice. It's refreshing. Also, that's actually a good point. Sorry, this made me reflect a little bit. And this is, having spent, just to give a little context, I spent 6 years doing a project called the Gender House Project, which was 6 years where I specifically jumped into topics of gender, from binary to all sorts of genders. It was a queer investigation. What I pushed myself, and what essentially I discovered, is that language is the issue. It's what creates very often the separation, the division, and borders. So I have had experiences where I've been touring with quite provocative work, trans work, non-binary work, with no words, very physical. And I've toured to very conservative areas in Europe where I've had people 65 plus majority stand up nearly crying and applauding, because they felt connection with another human being. And for me, that's like maybe a new way. I'm like, what's my language? My language isn't actually the words. That's why I'm an artist, not a poet or an academic, as an example. And this, when you say this, it resonates with me in the sense of why, you know what I mean? It resonates that, yeah, words.
Let's have some body instead, or
yeah, it's like empathy.
Although I understand it, but although you seem to surprise each other in this moment, and I think that was sort of in the structure. That's why I thought so. It's also nice to sometimes put things that are organic are now taken for granted.
Yes.
To have a moment to have a little surprise there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we have to already just, now I have to be even a bit more stricter because of the next event coming, to close it already slowly. Now I'm a bit lost right now. What is okay, now we have like a small break, and maybe it's good to have just a little bit more, a bit more than a small break, just to get some air, and then we will continue and kind of finish this thing here off with an input session by Daniel. I will afterwards tell a little bit more about what that is and why I invited you to this format. Thank you very much, both of you, and Sune also.
Now I go back to the